Thank you, Chairman Smith and Ranking Member Neal, for inviting me to testify today. Thank you to my friend Congressman Schneider and so many members on both sides of the aisle for your commitment to fighting anti-Semitism. On October 7th, the terrorist group Hamas committed mass atrocities in Israel, murdering more than 1,200 individuals and kidnapping, seizing over 200 babies, children, the elderly, the disabled, and more. In the wake of this massacre, the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, the ADL has tracked a surge of anti-Semitism around the world, and right here in America, in public spaces, in workplaces, and indeed on our college campuses, even in K-12 schools. And it's getting worse. In the months since October the 7th, ADL tracked 832 anti-Jewish acts in the U.S. That's almost 30 a day. Reports of incidences this year versus last year were 316% higher. And we know that campuses, college campuses, are a microcosm of what the trends we're seeing globally, but they've also become petri dishes where anti-Semitism is festering and flourishing. As you heard from Talia, and we should all salute her bravery and her courage with what she's had to deal with every single day since October the 7th. But we've documented hundreds of anti-Semitic incidents on campuses. We've seen residence halls plastered with hateful messages. We've seen Jewish students removed from student government because of their, quote, Zionism. And the list goes on. But October the 7th brought some campuses to their knees with a disturbing intensification of harassment, vandalism, and violence. We tracked 234 anti-Israel and pro-Hamas rallies on U.S. campuses, not calls for a two-state solution, not calls for a one-state solution. These were calls for a final solution. And these are serious incidents which continue to mount. Just this past weekend, we saw at Ohio State 2 Jewish students assaulted by attackers, slandering them with hateful slurs that I'm not going to repeat here for the session today. At UMass Amherst last week, we saw a Jewish student assaulted at an event honoring the hostages. And I'm sure you've all seen the clips of the Cooper Union, or Tulane, or Harvard, or MIT, or UCLA, and I could go on and on and on. Many of these incidents, indeed, as Jonathan pointed out, and Noah, were instigated, directed, and celebrated by Students for Justice in Palestine. Let me be clear. There is no world in which a person or an organization should justify Hamas's war crimes and unspeakable barbarities. So here in America, right here at home, we shouldn't tolerate students being threatened or intimidated because of their identity. No parent should ever have to ask whether it's safe for their children to attend certain universities. This isn't a question of free speech. Don't let anyone tell you that. Freedom of expression is not the freedom to incite violence. Period. Full stop. But the Jewish community, we will not cower in fear. We will stand up and fight back. 300,000 of us gathered together yesterday on the Mall, and look at what happened. No American flags were torn down, they were raised. People sang the national anthem. There were people wearing MAGA hats and pride flags, marching together in this place, on this issue. It was inspiring. That's what America looks like, and that's what our Jewish community looks like. So, to the question of where do we go from here, Congress, you have a role to play. And you can send an unequivocal message. And I'll give you 4 ideas. Number 1, pass comprehensive legislation to implement the national strategy to counter anti-Semitism. The White House deserves praise for what they've done. Now hold them accountable to make sure the job gets done. Number 2, pass an emergency supplemental bill, aid bill to Israel that includes funding for the nonprofit security grants that so many of you have fought hard to make sure our synagogues and our schools are kept safe. Number 3, urge governmental authorities, the FBI and the IRS, to look at and conduct a thorough review of these organizations like AMP and SJP that you've heard about today. And finally, ensure the Department of Education has adequate personnel and resources to enforce Title VI. But don't wait. Push them to be proactive in conducting investigations rather than just waiting for them to be worked through. Thank you again for the bipartisan presence here today. Thank you for holding this hearing, and I look forward to answering your questions.